Hey Mary Beth, how do I get the agenda back up? I clicked on the X on accident.
Unanimous for Reverend Davis for board president.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Confidence. Yes.
The oath of office for board president. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of board president in the Algona Community School District as now or hereafter required by law?
I will.
Okay.
Well, next on our agenda then is we need to elect a vice president. So we need a nomination from the floor. Or from
I nominate Brent Owen.
okay, we have a nomination of Brett.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Any other nominations? Okay. Nominations cease then. I guess we all will then fill out a ballot. And why don't you pass them this way and we'll get Mary Beth. Or
And Brett Owen is unanimously
all right, thanks guys.
elected.
Right, give you the same oath of office here. So, you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Vice President for the Algona Community School District as now or hereafter required by law.
I will.
Thank you. Okay, well, we have our Vice President in place for next year.
Well, thank you guys for your confidence. I think we have had a good relationship as far as the board has gone this year, and just communication between all of us. And we haven't always agreed, but I think it's also healthy to have differing views and doing what's best for the school. So.
Yep, definitely. So, okay, we'll move right into our regular meeting agenda. As most of you have had the agenda, so we need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. To approve the agenda in front of us. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. No hearing of delegations. Consent items. Again, you've had them since Friday. Everybody's kind of looked through them, I hope. If there's any questions, please ask now. And Andrea, you got through the board bills. Did you see any issues at all?
Everything looked good. Mary Beth does a very nice job of keeping us organized.
All right, great.
How was that? It's not as painful as you'd think. Right?
No, yeah, like she sets it up, so it's pretty easy to get through.
Yep. Were there any questions with the consent items? And you might have saw there's a few extra in front of you that came in late, probably after Andrea.
And I reviewed those this evening, so.
Okay, good.
I just saw here that fuel, I'm assuming that's buses and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that a bid thing? Do we bid that hour or so?
We have to bid it.
2 years.
2 years?
It hasn't been bid for 2 years. Because I don't think we found anybody else that wanted to bid it, quite honest. Last time, but we can, sure.
We did not bid it last year.
Yeah. Before that, I knew it was a bid process.
It was a
You're
bid
right.
process.
Yeah.
We had 2 bidders.
Usually.
Does anyone else have propane besides K&H?
I think that was our limiting factor.
Yeah.
To get a couple propane round buses signed.
And K&H had put a tank in for us over there when they received the bid the first time. So.
It would be good to revisit it
Yeah.
with our,
Rick, how many propane buses do we have?
We got 2.
We had 2.
You want, like to be a third one, maybe one of the next ones.
Is that just to diversify our fleet, or what's the advantage of propane over diesel?
They run more efficient
Cleaner.
over the long haul. They would say it's going to run more cost efficient. They're smaller, not as, the capacity's not as big. We can't take them as far. So it probably wouldn't be something we want the entire fleet of. We don't use them for activities, but they do run more cost effective.
Sorry, Rick, I know you're not the bus director, I just kind of thought you'd know.
All right. Any further questions? If not, we need a motion to approve the consent items.
So
Thank you, Todd. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent items carry, I guess. Joe, we'll go right into your superintendent's report.
Yep. Certified enrollment review, we talked about that briefly in October. Our certified enrollment is down 17 students. That's certainly significant. That is a big deal. Certified enrollment is what drives all of our per pupil funding in the district for next budget year, for the 2021-2022 school year. But we do have to look at it, I think, objectively, and I put some of those pieces in there. 17 is what we were down. However, our open enrollment out was down from 92 to 89, so we're +3 there. And our open enrollment in was up from 116 to 129 for +9 there. So that's a +12 net in our open enrollment. We're also +5 in our +6 in our whole grade share in. So those two things combined are greater than what our loss in certified enrollment is. Now it's not completely apples to apples because our per pupil funding is also going to be our teacher salary supplement funding and some other things, and they don't come at the same time. That's going to drive next year, and some of our open enrollment will be in the current. But overall, the number of students in our seats in our schools is greater this year than it was last year. But our certified enrollment, which is driven from our resident students, it is down. We also like to look at our statewide voluntary preschool, our 4-year-olds. That number continues to maintain. It was slightly larger this year. So we do think we're looking at steady enrollment continuing to move ahead. Any questions on certified enrollment? As I've shared in some memos to you, Mary Beth and I have started working with Matt Gillespie from Piper Sander on the possible refinancing of our SAVE sales tax bonds. We have bonds from the Performing Arts Center of slightly over $3 million and from the middle school of about $6.7 million remaining. We could refinance those for substantial savings. The middle school was refinanced once already, saving over $500,000 when it was refinanced before. This refinance would save us an additional $218,000. So these are things that would be beneficial for us to take advantage of. So the refinancing of the middle school alone 2 times would save almost $700,000 to the district.
So explain that to me. So when we refinance, is it similar to a house? So
Yeah.
my interest rate, was
Goes down.
4.5%, it's 2.8 or 2.7 or whatever now
Yeah.
is. It's the same principle as that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Some of these bonds don't come due for calling until later in the spring. But we've talked with Matt on how we can do that, and he can do a lot of that work for us. I've also put in there just some informational pieces later on tonight. We're going to look at our Phase 2 committee ideas that we've been working on throughout the fall, going back to the retreat in the summer, and laying some priorities for us. We could fund that project if we desired. When we refinance those bonds, we could also let out for bonds for that project. We can do all of that at the same process, and we certainly have the bonding capabilities to do that. We won't get a lot into that financial discussion, but we do have the means to do that if the board would want to.
What does it cost to refinance? Is there a cost to do that?
There is, and he always factors that in your savings, so if the cost.
I mean, is it of the magnitude of, so if I refinance a home, it's gonna be about $4,000. I mean,
Yeah. It's
four,
about
I mean.
50,000, I think, to do this process with Piper Sandler.
Okay. And that's just an upfront cost then?
Yes. Yes.
Is that Pepple money then?
That is, yeah.
But like, I think that's 218 might be 265 or 268.
That is
He's already
savings after
figured
the
it.
cost of it.
He's already kind of figured the cost of that.
In the Phase 2 committee work, the Phase 2, looking at our facilities, last year, we had the field project that was an awesome addition to our facilities. Gave all kinds of opportunities for our kids that, this year would have been different, from weather to practice opportunities for our football team as well as our band. Everything we wanted to accomplish with that project really did happen. We knew that there was a next part of that where we wanted to look at creating the opportunities for handicap accessible restrooms, making our outdoors facilities ADA compliant, creating a common entrance to our outdoor facilities, and then also, which was identified by the board at our retreat this summer, making sure our plans align with the future needs of the district. So those were the 4 objectives that the committee has thought about over the last few months, and some of the work they've done with the guys from Ventura who will speak here in a few minutes. They've put together some plans that accomplish those objectives with some cost proposals as well, and we'll get more into that. The ticket booth is a little over $600,000. There's significant infrastructure work that has to take place to our grounds, to our facilities to make that happen. And the cost of that infrastructure and groundwork is about $700,000. So the concession restroom ticket booth is about $600,000. Infrastructure work is about $700,000. And then also looking at this big picture in the future, in order for us to meet the needs of the district, moving the softball field to that common entrance or common area. So down the road, we could look at the possibility of an auxiliary gym to the east of the high school. Those things all fit together. And the cost of moving the softball field at this time would be $684,000 is where the proposal is right now. So the total of all of those together is $2.3 million. Now the funding of the project, again, this is just straight funding from the school. This is not. There may be community donors who want to contribute. There may be other possibilities, but if we funded the project strictly from a sales tax revenue bond standpoint, we could do that. We could do that when we refinance both the middle school and PAC bonds, which both do need to be refinanced. We've talked about the savings for that. Putting all that together, all of the debt in the district would still be paid for by 2030, which I think is important to note as we continue to think about our future, think about our plans and what we want for our district. Currently, refinancing of our bonds would put our annual payment around $850,000 sales tax per year, which is certain. It's something that is far in the means of what we do and wouldn't change our current Pebble expenditures at all. What we do on an annual basis for buses, HVAC, concrete, carpets, all of our facilities needs, those would not change. Those would remain as is. The district generates between $1.3 and $1.4 million in sales tax dollars per year. Our SAVE fund currently has a balance of over $1.3 million. So an $850,000 payment is certainly within the means of the Also put some informational things in for you guys to think about in this. Starting in fiscal year '22, which is the next school year, we'll start to receive supplementary waiting dollars for our resolution that the board passed last year to study reorganization with the Laverne School District. That will produce over $700,000 annually for 3 consecutive years. Now, those are not dollars that will always be there. We don't want those dollars to be tied into our annual budget. So there is some possibility and opportunities with that money moving ahead as well. Questions on some of that phase 2 project? The specifics of the project we'll get into here in a few minutes, and they'll kind of walk us through the project and what it looks like, and there'll be lots of opportunities for questions when we do that.
I think Andrea raised a good question at our agenda review. We're in this process of expanding our facilities, which are needed and updated. It's been neglected for a long time. But Andrea raised the question of, this is all athletics associated, or gives the appearance that it is. And maybe you can speak to more of that, or you can kind of talk what we talked about, Andrea. But it's just, looking at other needs within the district academically, as far as apart from athletics. And I don't know if you want to respond to that or what, but I think we had a good discussion as far as the needs of the district, that they're really...
Yeah. It's a really good question, and I think it's one that we always have to ask ourselves, or are we meeting the needs of our students? Do we have the opportunities for our kids in all areas? And the district has done a very, very good job up to this point. We've had a couple of additions here that included where our broadcasting program is. We've had weight room, wrestling room additions. We've had a performing arts center, the new middle school. There's been a lot of things. Our automotive, industrial tech, a lot of great things that we have that other districts oftentimes have to look to expand and create those possibilities for our kids. So I think the district historically has done a wonderful job of setting us up at this point. Some of our outdoor facilities certainly needed updated, and or with that, we've started that process. This kind of continues that process to create those facilities for our people.
And it's just, the field, we would have been canceling games this year had we not had the turf field, and just the opportunities, I think, for the community too are important. But, the handicap accessible bathrooms, the concessions, paved walkways at the football field, is good. And then you talked a little bit about moving the softball field, which is a big expense. But one of the things that our facilities lack is gym space in the wintertime. We have kids that are practicing late at night because we have to, stagger practices. And so really, as we look at phase 3 and things, then it's the logical location of that would be, where the softball field sits right now. And so that's why we're talking about moving the softball field to create a one entrance facility, and then, moving on from there. So, this is a bigger picture that I think the people involved have just really planned this out, rather than just one thing and then, oh shoot, we should have done it this way. This is where we need to be moving.
And I think we have an obligation to look at it from that perspective. There's immediate needs that we're trying to fill, but we have to look at it from the perspective of the district down the road. I think Todd brought that up a little more a year ago. Have we thought about all this stuff? Have we put it all in place? Have we started to prioritize these things? Gym space is a tremendous concern. There's no question about that. To create the opportunity for that auxiliary gym. That'll be shown on the kind of the big picture view here in a minute. Moving the softball field is part of that, and creating a common entrance athletic gateway is part of that. So they're all tied together. It's all for our kids. All really one thing. We just have to do it in pieces and in phases.
And I think we talked about that too, Joe. Some of the people in the committee of, you could possibly get a similar something done for $1 million. But it doesn't take into consideration some of the plans of 20 years down the road of having a facility that is really not going to need a lot of changes for the next 25 years.
Right, right.
I think we talked in the agenda review, the fact that what's important to me is I see this being done all in by 2030. And we all know we've talked elementary needs possible.
Mhm.
Well, that gives us, in another 6-8 years, we will have the ability to start planning for our elementary needs, and if there is. And I think that's a good thing that we do with all this, and we're kind of meeting all of our infrastructure needs then.
In all these plans, everything that we're talking about, including a future discussion of an elementary, is without raising the taxes of our
Yeah.
people. This is through revenue that we currently generate.
And we talked about too, about why not do the elementary now? It's the amount.
Yeah, we do not have the capabilities of doing that now. We wouldn't be able to bond for that amount now with the debt that we already have. But 2030, we certainly could, once which is why I talked about when that debt.
Yeah, would be done.
We will look more at that project here in a little bit. Wanted to talk a little bit about our indoor events. Certainly the positive percentage of COVID cases in the county continues to rise. We were over 18% in Cassup County today. Not specific to our county, it's happening statewide. Actually, 81 of our counties are over 15% in the state of Iowa. But with that rising level of cases, as well as our positivity rate, we are entering our winter sports season, which is all indoors, and we bring a lot of people indoors for basketball, for wrestling. We have concerts Thursday, we have the musical this weekend, and so on. And we've started a discussion administratively about the masking of our spectators at indoor events. Currently, all students and staff are required to wear facial coverings, and social distancing isn't possible at events. Public health does recommend that we require face coverings of all our spectators at indoor events. I think it's something for this group to discuss as we're getting close. We have like I said, a music concert Thursday, a musical this weekend, and we have our first middle school basketball game 2 weeks from Thursday. So they're right around the corner.
I think it makes sense. I mean, the public health is the experts I have to look at for this. Like we talked, I think to the core, I don't like individuals saying what I have to do, but I think this just makes sense to, that, especially in a basketball game or something, you're yelling over top somebody in a play, or you're sitting close to the bleachers. I think it just makes sense that we ask that you wear a mask to protect the kids and the people there so they can continue their season, hopefully with as minimal interruptions or none if possible.
Joe, you know, it looks like we've got some other districts in the area that are actually limiting spectators at the functions, which is similar to what happened during state in the spring and stuff, we went to that level. What does public health say about, are we there yet, or is it more in the preference of the mask mandate, or is it shrinking the crowds as well?
Well, I did ask them about limiting spectators a few weeks back. At that point, they said they felt masking our spectators would be a step that would in the right direction. I didn't ask them that today, however, they did contact me with just informational. We have an increase in cases, which I think we certainly do at the hospital, at the clinic. There are schools in the conference that sent out their winter guidelines today that I shared one example with you guys today, where they're going to limit spectators, I think 4 per player for varsity events. It was less than that for the lower. So that stuff is coming. I would assume that will become more widespread. I know Amy Jacobson had a Zoom call with conference ADs today. Many of them have those plans in place. A lot of them have board meetings tonight where it's a discussion topic like it is here, and just kind of waiting to put those in place. So I think that's another piece, the limiting of spectators, that will certainly many schools will be looking at here in the coming years also.
One question, volleyball played this fall, and, like you say, staff and students masked up, and as well as others. And Mr. Cecil, I thought did a great job with the student section of spacing them out, and the kids, were good about it. Do we have any evidence of any sort of transmission during those events?
We don't. I shared with you guys some of our quarantine data. The evidence that prior to October 1st, we had quarantined 138 students. Since October 1st, we've quarantined 26, I believe now. Only 5 of those 26 are from close contact, actually at school, though. So no, we don't have any evidence of that. When our students are masked, that quarantine-wise, that helps for us. So I think our students are protected in the environments that we have. Public health has a greater concern beyond that as we bring in, typically, we do have a few more fans in the stands for a basketball game. Wrestling duel, maybe not so much. We think about tournaments. We host a JV tournament. There might be 20 schools that attend that tournament. Again, not with full teams, but those are things to think about as we head into those events and what we want those to look like or what we're comfortable with.
I think we have to take into consideration too the individual's right to if they want to come,
Yeah.
they want to come. They have the decision to come or not. So that's something to take into consideration.
I think we made the mask change policy, even though, we all have differing opinions on it, because it had to deal with the kids being quarantined. And that was, I don't agree with it, but it's a no-brainer really to keep the kids in school. I mean, you look at the number of kids and you can't argue with that, but that came from a state level, out of our control, I'd be really careful how I talk, because, it is getting, I don't want to say worse, but we've, it started in March, and COVID is finally here. I had heard somebody say that the other day. I was talking to a guy who had it, and I think that's a really reasonable perspective. It's always been real, it's always been dangerous, it's always been an issue and a concern, and it's not that, we're heartless or that I'm not concerned about it, it's just, it hasn't been here. Now it's here, how do you deal with it? And, anytime I talk, I don't want to be the doctor on the board. I'm not giving advice. I'll default to the public health. I just have, certainly my opinions about it. But, the way I see it is the school doesn't really belong to us. We're stewards of it. So we don't own it, And telling people to say, you have to do this to come to the school, I don't want to be a part of that, to be frank. I don't think that's really our place as a district to do. That's public health's, and they can give recommendation, but I don't want to be part of mandating this if you're going to come into our facilities. I think that's an overreach of what our role is as a board, as well as what the school really is for. Having a spectator at an event not wearing a mask has nothing to do with quarantine of our kids or their ability to be at school, to be educated. Those kids that go to that event, even though they want to watch their friends or whatever participate, that's their choice. If Jay goes or I go, that's my choice. And I think the whole thing with COVID too, and people's view on it and why it's controversial is people's perceived risk, of how is this going to affect me, my health. Frankly, if that is not the place to be if somebody is concerned about being sick, going to a large event. That is going to be a super spreader event, to steal a term it's just whether you're wearing a mask and you're sitting shoulder to shoulder, I don't know if I'm not going to get into the debate whether masks are good or bad or protect people. It just by nature of that large event, it's a risk for infection. And so when Joe, you sent out the information about one school in the county and how they're approaching large events, I have mixed feelings about limiting it. That makes more sense to me. I think it takes away from the kids by limiting who can come, because I remember being an athlete and wanting the whole town and community to be there, because that's what's part of what's fun. I mean, I said it in our last meeting, there's nothing more important in this community than our school. You know, and if we start limiting who can come, I mean, it takes away really the hub of the community at maybe sake for the greater good, but I don't know if that's our place as a board. At least I don't feel like that's my place on a board to direct or dictate people's behavior as well as create a health policy. You know, if it came down from a higher level, if it was the, you know, Department of Education or athletics, you know, but the reality is they haven't made that decision. This is a statewide problem. This is not a Kossuth or this is not an Algona problem. This is a statewide, and they've not made a policy. So I am not in favor of, you know, creating individual health policy based on our district. That's just my thoughts. And I know there are differing opinions out there. I know there's people on the board that likely have different opinions, and that's okay. I mean, this is just, you know, my thought. It's not something that we need to, you know, go to war over, and I think everybody's a little bit tired of hearing it, you know, and dealing with it. And I don't want it to be, I mean, Joe, we had talked, and just to be fully transparent, we talked in our agenda review whether we want this to be a vote or a motion item. I don't know if it needs to go to that length. I mean, I think it's something that, you know, the administration is going to make a decision on. They need to kind of get our input about it, you know, and they're going to make the best decisions. But I am not in favor. Not that I don't think COVID is serious, not that I don't think it's going to pose a risk to, you know, an elderly grandparent that wants to watch their kid, you know, play and say, well, I would go if everybody wore a mask, and I wouldn't, you know, I'm not going to because, you know, some people aren't. I just don't think that's part of our role to do it. I think it raises other concerns too about enforcement issues too. You know, can you eat popcorn in the crowd? Can you drink a pop? Can you take down your mask to catch a breath without, you know, whoever's there to enforce it? I know the majority of the schools in the district are talking about this, like you said. We'll probably go to a mask mandate or regulate, you know, crowd sizes and things. And, you know, the only thing I guess when I'm thinking about it too, and I'm just talking out loud, is, you know, if other schools start to say, well, we're not going to go to Algona to compete because they're handling it this way. You know, that'd be a shame if it came to that. It really would. But, you know, big picture, I think it's an overreach of our role to start telling people how to take care of their health and direct their health. That's just my thoughts. So.
And on the other hand, I think we do have a responsibility to the public, as you know, this from a school standpoint and bringing the community together under our roof. And I guess I look at it a bit like that, is that responsibility lies with us for the community. Kind of centers around the school. Again, looking to our local public health department for their recommendations and guidance, which sounds to me like, you know, they're recommending that we mandate masks at activities. And also I think about it from just a practicality standpoint. You know, these gyms are packed with grandparents, parents, aunts and uncles, you know, I mean, family. And so if we don't think our kids are impacted by exposure to their families after they go home, I mean, I think we're missing kind of a part of the big picture. It's a community. Our kids are part of that community. So we don't take some measures at these events where we're packing people in a gym to minimize it. And hopefully we can maintain school. Hopefully we can maintain activities. But Brent, like you said, it's here. So what changes in the next day, 2 days, 2 weeks, but I'm of the opinion that, you know, we need to be as proactive as possible.
Our students and staff will be required to wear them, though.
They already are.
Yeah.
So it would be just the community.
Okay.
And also the community people from the other towns
Yes.
that are coming in to our community.
Yeah, they would know what our policy is.
Yeah, we started the school year with a no mask mandate, which I agreed with. When the governor laid out her proclamation in late September, I agreed with we had no choice but to do this. But we're seeing this virus increasing across the state. We're seeing it increasing in our county. Nothing tells me it's going to decrease. I believe it's going to keep increasing. And I think I'm ready to follow more of the public health guidelines, and if they're going to say to us, we should wear masks in the gym, in the wrestling room with our crowds, I'm going to have a tendency to support that recommendation.
I think, Tom, you outlined the situation well. We started the school year with masks being encouraged when social distancing wasn't possible. We were comfortable with that, and I think it was the right thing to do. We had very low numbers, we were successful with that, and we've been very, very successful, guys, to this point. And we've been in school for over 11 weeks with really just handfuls, of cases here and there. We have 0 to 5. I can't talk about specific numbers, but I can give you ranges. We have 0 to 5 students in the district who have active positive cases. We have 6 to 10 staff members in the district who have active positive cases. We have 0 to 5 students who are quarantined currently in the district. So our buildings are healthy, safe places because of the mitigations that we've put in place, and we've continued to review, which is what we said in August we were going to do. We were going to continue to review our protocols to do what was best for our kids. We did change when the governor's proclamation changed. I think what's different now, going back to Tom's timeline, is, and like what Dr. Owen said, it's simply here, which it wasn't previously. We have it here. Our positivity rate has grown tremendously. The county had 116 cases in the last 7 days, which would be 20% of our total cases since March. And again, I would agree, I don't know where that, what makes that get better. So where my thought process goes is, how do we stay in school? Most importantly, what do we do to keep our kids in school? And do we have to become part of the community's response to it to keep our kids in school? If that's what it takes, I guess that's what I want to do, whatever we have to do to keep our kids in school and to keep our activities so our kids can be involved with them. I would say those are our priorities right now, along with, obviously, keeping everyone safe.
I mean, quite honestly, though, too, I mean, the best way to do it is to not allow spectators and to limit it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
And so when we come at it from that perspective, and that's not something that I want to do, the reality is that that's the solution. And I'm not trying to be a public health expert, but that's what it is, spectator free or limited, so you can have, the one district. When you first sent out that email today, I actually thought that's what you guys had decided. Then I was like, well, Joe wouldn't actually do that without, informing us first, but it was, I mean, honestly, it made sense. And I'm not in favor of that, because I think you take that away from some people in the community, it will destroy them. That's what they want to do. They want to be here. They have nothing else. And so you could make an argument both ways, and I could say, man, if you're 85 and you don't have a family, you should be staying home right now. But that person is still going to make that choice to come, because that's what's important. Their choice. Just like wearing a mask, I feel, is somebody's choice. So I mean, it's just by the school doing this, and again, I'm not trying, I understand everybody's perspective, but by the school doing this, we're basically becoming an entity that's saying we're directing public policy as far as individual behavior. And I'll support the school. I'll go along. I'm not going to raise a stink, but at the core of me, that is not what I believe in. So,
there's two different ways you can look at this. You can look at it as you're infringing on my rights by making me wear a mask, or you're looking out for everybody else around me. How do you want to look at that? And you mentioned Menards. They're in Menards the other day. They've got a mask, man. Everybody in there was wearing a mask. And I think it's just become such almost a norm, that people have. Everybody's got a few masks in the console of their vehicle or in their pocket or something. I mean, it's just, and so I think, if when we have an event, people who come are our guests. I view them as guests. And, it's no different than if I have guests at my house, I have certain expectations. And if they come once and don't like those expectations, they may not come the next time they're invited. And, if we do this and we have those expectations, they're our guests here, I think we can expect some things from them for the betterment of everybody, for the good of everybody.
So, I mean, the other thing, I know we're just starting to talk about this, is the enforcement of it, and so, and then it's up to whoever's the enforcer, is how they see things. So if I'm sitting away from people, if I'm 15 feet away in my family unit, am I required to wear a mask? I mean, do we make exceptions for that? I mean, those are important conversations to have, because, in high school basketball, you're not going to find a place to socially distance in that gym if everybody's there. Middle school basketball, middle school wrestling, JV, maybe, you could get up in a corner or something like that, so, I mean.
Well, I think it's been a great discussion. I think administratively, that's where they would like to lead us, and we believe that that's with the recommendation of public health and administration, we're going to go with that. But I mean, it is good discussion, but I do think it's time we move on to the next topic here that we have.
I am not in favor of that decision. That's fine if we go to that, but I by no means do I think we should tell people what they can do if they have the choice not to come. So.
I did put the IASB convention information on there again. Equity workshop tomorrow night, correct?
Correct.
The 17th is the delegate assembly, which Rodney is planning on attending. We have him as the delegate later on in the meeting. Also, Tom is on the ballot for the IASB board at that assembly. And then the next day is the general session. If you want or are interested in any of that, let Mary Guthrie know and we can get you registered.
Congratulations, Tom. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tom and I got to talk. We got to get him nominated there.
That'd be good.
Yes. We'll talk about that. We'll get that done.
How many people are on the ballot? Just him?
Well, unless somebody gets nominated outside.
Yeah, someone can get nominated, but he is the one on the ballot. But someone else can get nominated
There are deadline dates in every district. This is District 2. There's 8 districts across the state. There's a deadline date to submit applications. And then at the caucus on delegate assembly, you can nominate up to 2 people. Then there'll be a vote of all the people later on. And the new person takes over January 1st. So I was the only one who submitted applications, but they could actually nominate 2 people.
All right. Moving on, we'll go to communications to the board, and we thank you for your patience as we had our discussion here today, but we have Achura Architects with us to talk about our Phase 2 project.
Good evening. I'm Austin Peel with Achura Architecture, and with me is Reed Westman, the project architect on this. Joe and the board, we appreciate the opportunity to kind of share with you tonight what we've been working on with the committee, the building committee. It's been a fun project, one that I think is a good addition for the school, and we'll see kind of from there, from your guys' perspective, how to move forward, but kind of give you a little recap on the project. We started back in the spring, and kind of our directive at that time was just to explore some options on the site, kind of look at a master plan, if you will, as far as what the facilities for the school could look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and of that, what Joe's already talked about being the potential auxiliary gym that you guys have had discussions in the past about. But really, it's looking at a transformation of that entire site. It was looking at how do you bring those 4 elements with the restrooms, the accessibility, with the main entrance, and then your longevity and your facilities into one plan. And so we kind of took a broader approach to it and really looked at how does this work best, not only from a sports standpoint, but there is a lot of overlap that can be used in other ways for kind of the plan that we came up with. And we took a break from that as you guys looked at your return to learn plan, and COVID kind of ramped up, and the priorities were elsewhere. So once you guys returned to school, we got back with a building committee, and at that time, many of you, which are in here, and Rick and Joe and many others, we looked at a lot of elements of what you have, what you need, how does this site accommodate all of those things, and obviously the biggest thing being the softball field moving into that location, and how do you really comprehensively allow all those facilities to use, or all those fields to use one facility. And so I'll let Reed talk about it a little more, but one thing that's hard to see in anything that we show you is, you guys know the site out there is there's a pretty big drop in just elevation. And so it's hard to get the sense of how it's going to change, but I would encourage you, if you're out around there, to, after you see this, to just one of these days just try to envision it. As we were working on it, we had many days where we were out there and the kids were walking around, and it was, I mean, for the time that we were here, it was used in a lot of different ways than just sports too. So I think we tried to come up with a plan that would allow that to really be enhanced in many ways, whether it's band festival or it's PE or it's break time at lunch. There's a lot of circulation space that's going to be out there that you can use for sports and other events. So with that, I'll let Reed talk more about the actual project.
Yeah, so the concessions, ticket booth, restroom facility building is really 3 buildings that are lumped together by one common roof structure. And really we let the site topography dictate the form of the building. If you go out there, you know how that north end of the field kind of swoops pretty low. And so we took that and made a simple frame that just kind of rotated around that curve of the site. And so it's just a fairly simple building, but because of that curve, it kind of creates this dynamic space. It's really facing, the front is facing the main parking area, so as you approach the facility, it frames the football field. It's really centered on the football field. So, and then you can see there the center portion, the ticket booth to the left, which is the southwest, that's the concessions area, and there'll be a retail store there, a little space for that as well. And then on the right side is restrooms. So we've had a men's and women's, and then 2 family restrooms there. So, yeah, Joe, I don't know if you want to go ahead and play the video.
The video, and then we can probably, if they want to look at something specific, we can
Yep.
look at that. Okay.
Yep.
also have a number of stills, I guess, on here, where we could also pause the video in any spot. You guys have some questions for these guys on design or
It's beautiful.
concept?
One thing that Joe said during our meeting, what I think was cool, is the line of sight from the entryway, like right it goes, it's right lines up with the bulldog in the middle of the football field, which that kind of showed it. You guys have obviously worked hard, and I think the committee has worked really hard, and this is, you know, a great design. One thing that I just kind of threw out there too, with, you know, with that curve being there, with that slope coming up, is there an opportunity for seating kind of down below where it says bulldogs on that wall, you know, or a bench or something where people could sit down there, or even, I've always thought of that kind of area as like, almost like an amphitheater sort of thing, just to do.
You're talking about this area right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Now with that slope still there, is there a way to?
I always tell these guys that's the hardest part for me to envision, because right now there's no slope, right? It's straight down, and we have a shed there. I'll let you talk about that, Reed.
Yeah, so when the shed goes away, we are bringing in quite a bit of fill to fill in that site, so it's a little bit deceptive and hard to visualize, but it is going to be more of a gradual slope. So yes, there is potentially opportunities there for more seating. It's always that balance, though, to what extent do you make seating? I mean, are you going to pave that with concrete and that just adds more cost? We're trying to, you know, hold that all in tension, but there is certainly opportunities there to even sit out on the grass.
I just know, you know, a lot of kids, it's just the eating area and different things, it's just more space. You know?
Yeah, the initial.
I'm not saying we have to do that, I just thought that would be, you know.
And I think how we have that site, or how we're looking at that site right now, is that you won't have a straight drop off from that retaining wall right there. So it's not as if you're going to look down and you're going to hit the ground. There's going to be kind of a 5 foot or so buffer right at the base of that. So there actually will be a relatively flat area that even if you don't put, you know, designated seating there, you're going to have the ability to be walking around there. We did that for a few reasons. One, that's kind of just from a safety hazard. You don't want someone climbing over that and falling down, but then allowing for a place to be able to circulate around that if need be.
This edge right here, maybe this is, look at it right here. That is the western edge of the building right now, right? Is that about where that falls?
It's not quite that far.
Not quite that far. There is
Yeah, it's pretty close though.
Yeah.
And Tom just had a question for me. His question was around the ADA accessibility, and if you're in a wheelchair, how do you circulate? So really, rather than when you think about going to like a mall or someplace like that where you're going to have your ADA ramps, they're going to be pretty narrow. They're going to be pretty well just designated for that. Our idea with this is you're going to have a larger width walking and circulation path, both to the visitor, to the softball, baseball field, but also to the home side. And we want that lower portion, which we kind of consider a plaza area, seating, congregating area, to just merge kind of seamlessly with that walking path. So really, it won't be this dramatic slope where you're going to go up and down in a wheelchair. It's going to be a natural convergence of both the lower portion and the higher portion. And I think we've even discussed changing it, how it kind of looks on there a little bit too, where there is kind of a, you know, an elbow there. It's going to be more of just a gradual slope to those visitor sides and the home side, and then kind of a larger stair area in the center to allow for some more circulation, that if you do want to come up and go from visitor side to the restrooms, you don't have to circulate behind the concession line or the entry line.
So right now in this plan, you know, this is our circle drive area, paved through the ticket booth, paved all the way to the visitor side, paved all the way to our concrete here with the handicap accessible, you know, restrooms. A couple of the objectives that we were after in our initial planning phase accomplished here.
Does scope include the existing stands at all on the visitors, or, okay, so that all stays the same?
Correct.
Does this include, like we had talked about, the concrete walkway around the track?
No, we had that in there initially. But we didn't have some of this concrete, I don't know which way it was, we didn't have some of that. And we really, that's important, you know, to have that accessibility. I think it'd be really nice to have that around there, I really do. And it's something that we had in the initial plan, there's just there's an expense to it. I can't remember what that number was, probably around 100.
I think it was about 100,000.
Yeah.
I think the concept is incredible. You know, the way it flows and the accessibility for all people, common eating area after you get your concessions and things like that for people to gather and watch, whether it's softball, go to baseball. What we're haven't mentioned here is now people can watch both the softball and the baseball at the same time. And instead of having two separate entrances, really not even know if softball's playing at the same time. So we really get a lot of correlation there, and able to cut down on resources too by having this our concession stand for all outdoor activities, and restrooms for all outdoor activities. And our one focal gateway point to everything outdoors. So.
Brent, to your question, if you can envision the bottom of that retaining wall, that will actually go right up to the current shed. So from a positioning standpoint, you're pretty close to the field. The other side of that is adding quite a bit of paving around that circulation from the home to the visitor side does in a way create that path around the track. One thing that when we looked at the track and doing the paving around there is you have such a big elevation change that you have a lot of barriers for how you get down there and how you get back up in that circulation versus a lot of the other tracks that we see that actually do that. It's pretty level ground to where you have a lot more, you know, ability to get back and forth easily. Here we would have to create more scenarios for how you do, you know, get all the way down to it.
Yeah, certainly unique, but that's what makes, I think, our field is neat, because it's like a bowl, you know, it really feels like a stadium. So, I mean, this is, I think you guys did a superb job with a difficult space, you know, so it's really it's a neat.
Did we take into consideration too, like maintenance in regards to landscaping and that kind of stuff? What's planted, what's not, and where? And
Well, we haven't really looked at landscaping.
We haven't
the
really gotten
plants-
into that yet.
Yeah, the plants that you have there are really more just for, you know,
The
setting the
facilities.
atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, what we would do is we would do, you know, we wouldn't be putting flowers or anything that you'd have to maintain. A lot of the times, that's kind of up to the school as far as if you want any. Most of the time, they don't want anything. So whether that's just right around the entrance, you have, you know, some grasses or something like that. That's really to be developed once if you guys decide to move forward with this.
Rick's usually not much flower guy.
yeah, people low maintenance.
Can you guys talk about timeline? You know, we have, there is a timeline in place for this. Tonight it's a discussion point, opportunity to see this, ask questions. If we would want to move ahead, what's the timeline we kind of have etched out right now?
Yeah, so if we wanted to move ahead, we have about, I think it's about 2 months in a design phase where we'd go in and work out all the details, work with engineers, and design it out. And so then bidding would take place January, February time frame, which, you know, is good enough for spring construction. It's not ideal, but there's still time to do that. And so then we go right into spring construction and get it done for fall sports next year.
So in that timeline, the December board meeting does work for approval or not?
It does work for approval on that, yeah.
How does it interfere with spring sports as far as construction there? Does it with track at all?
I think, well, you know, there'll be some construction here, but I think we'll have accessibility probably over here through this gate and still be able to do everything as we normally would.
And then softball would probably, I'm guessing, play.
They just play where they are, and then this would have to be constructed
Right.
during that.
During wider play.
And that's one of those areas too that, we've looked at certain elements of other softball fields that we're working on right now, and we've reached out to some other consultants that have worked on, the site work for softball fields. So but that is really just a placeholder estimate. I think it's probably quite a bit on the high side. So I think that is one of those areas that as we get into it, develop it more. A good example of that is we have all block walls for the dugouts. Is that really needed? Or, is the team room, how big is the team room if there is, a place for the players to change and that sort of thing? How large is that? And some of those other elements, how many bleachers, or can you reuse some of your lighting, which is
The current cost proposal is from scratch, but
Right.
we certainly can bring our lights over. Rick and I have talked about that. Those are in really good shape. There'll be some bulb to put in, but there is certainly some, so that's just a proposal. It very well could look good cost-wise.
Is the softball field, because right now where the practice football field is, it's down. So is the softball field at the current grade, or did they raise it up? You guys raised it up?
I think we're assuming it's going to be close to that current grade.
Okay.
We did elevate kind of that northeast wing of that, just because where the concessions area reaches, it goes pretty far into that field, the practice field. It's hard to tell on here because I think when you look at this, you orientate yourself with the current ticket booth and that sign, but in reality, you're pretty much lined up directly in the middle of that tree that's in your kind of the turnaround area there. So it's quite a bit further to the right than your current ticket booth. So it bleeds into there, which we've already accounted for filling there. And then there is some number within grading for the softball field, but until we get, Bex involved, then we won't know how much fill will be needed or drainage.
Is that video accessible?
I have linked it now in the agenda, so everyone can get to that one.
Any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Thank you for thanks for the time. We'll continue to move forward and look at those timelines as we discussed. So be prepared probably to talk about it again next month and hopefully we can get approval moving forward. Mr. Roders, you've been real patient also tonight. And we have you next on our agenda.
Well, it's exciting to hear that stuff, though. And you talk about the football field, it did make an impact to even our youth organizations that utilize the football field. Some of those things probably would not have happened because of weather, and they did happen because of that field. So it goes much beyond just our high school, junior high sports. It's some of our youth activities in the community, all the way down to third graders and things like that. So one thing I want to talk to you about real quick and make you aware, our Veterans Day program that the middle school traditionally puts on. We are putting one on this year. Actually, it was put on last week on Thursday. We filmed it, and we're going to show that to our students tomorrow. Veterans Day is an early out, but we're going to show it to our students on November 10th tomorrow, and then we will make that available to the public through the Channel 4 Public Access, and then also on our website. It won't be available just open-ended. There has to be some limits on how many times we can show it. But we did want to get that out to our public. Mrs. Bowman takes a lot of pride in that program. I want to give her a huge compliment for the work she put in. But also, we still felt it was a needed thing to do for our community. So a little bit different. It won't be live, but it's going to be available. November 11th at 7 p.m. is when it's going to go live on the public access. That's the plan. So, and then the website, we're kind of talking like 4 to 8. It will be available. And then we do have to shut that down. It's not just open-ended. So big thing I want to talk to you guys about is a big initiative we're doing in the middle school. And actually, it's a district-wide initiative. I'm going to talk about what we're doing in the middle school. We're implementing circles, restorative practices, and part of that is circles, where we're working with our students to bring them together in their advisory groups. And we initially started out with just community building circles, which are really just all about the students getting to know us and us getting to know our students and talking. One of the early ones we did was talking about homecoming. It's amazing how many kids really don't know why you have homecoming. And we talked about that. It just got kids talking. The other side of it was getting them used to talking in a group. A lot of kids like to talk with their buddies at the lunch table, but it's a completely different thing when you're sitting in front of a class of maybe 22 kids and a teacher. So we started with community buildings, and then it was October 14th, we had our trainer, Maria, come in, which we viewed as a big kickoff for our circles moving into that next phase. She worked with our staff, she observed some of our circles, and what we did after that was we implemented our social emotional learning, second step curriculum into our circles. And I'll hand out an example. The staff worked, Tom, would you just pass these around? There should be enough there. So the staff worked together at each grade level to come up with a theme that was tied to our second step learning, our social emotional learning. And from there, what we found is through our observations is that we were talking to kids, we were starting out really, really strong, but you go around the circle, kids would share, then you need another question, and sometimes when you're thinking on your feet, your questions aren't as probing or guiding as you want them to be. So every theme now has 4 to 8 questions tied to it. We do circles at every grade level twice a week, barring, like last week we had the early outs and stuff, makes it a little more complicated. But they have 2 themes a week, and then there's 4 to 8 questions that guide those themes, and that's across the grade level. So you can see some of the questions they're asking about. Grade levels do differ because the social emotional learning that they're doing, the second step curriculum that we're using, changes at each grade level. You'll find the 8th grade, it's much more focused on some themes of bullying and harassment and comments, including social media, things like that. That is a ever-changing and almost a non-stop situation we're dealing with. So we're using those circles. We've also had circles, some of our new science curriculum that we're purchasing and implementing. Circles are actually built into that science curriculum, so you're introducing concepts, learnings, and those students are getting together and then sharing about what they learned. And when you create that sharing, it creates connections for other students. It's like, well, I never thought about it that way. Or I didn't realize you could maybe solve that problem through those steps. So kids are sharing that learning. So there are academic circles. There are also what we call problem-solving circles. We do a lot of this in our playing room when kids come down. And so many times our conflict that we have in school is actually between friends. It starts out good-natured fun, and then tempers escalate, things like that. Kids need to talk it through. And so we're utilizing circles to de-escalate those situations and problem solve those kids about a better way to approach it. And why we, like the old saying, keep your hands to yourself, we always say that to kids. Kids struggle to do that. But why we keep telling that, because this is what happens when you don't. And so we're utilizing that in the playing room. It's a learning process, but I think, like in that case, Mrs. Probasco has done a great job implementing it. We've used it in different classes as well to talk about situations. We've practiced it as a staff a few times, and it's worked really well. You are able to pass. I will tell you there's a number of staff members that aren't as comfortable sharing in a big group, so they will choose to pass. One of the recommendations for the staff is to have smaller groups. The middle school staff with TAs and everybody gets to be rather large, and so she's recommending like 3 to 4 groups when we do it as a staff versus 1 or 2 large groups for time and then just comfortability of staff. So those are some things we're doing there in a nutshell. Really, really excited about it. She's coming back in February to continue our training. We do want to continue to implement that and continue to challenge our students to start sharing things. I will tell you, one of our fears was, will students talk? And we have a few kids that don't want to talk yet, but it's amazing what kids are sharing in those circles. They're getting used to it. It's a fairly safe spot. They are sharing, they're answering our questions, and it's really allowing us to get to know them better, which is a big driving force years ago, we talked about relationship building. It's just a continuation of that process. So with that, I brought along Miss Shelby Birdie. She's our new family consumer science teacher. She's part of the 7th grade team. Thought it'd be fun to put somebody in front of you that maybe you don't know as well. She's also implementing circles. She's going to touch on that and then just touch on a few things that she's doing in the family's consumer science area. Very, very excited about this stuff. So,
thank you, Mr. Roper. As tall as you. So yes, circles for me have been a great way for me to get to know my students a little bit better. Being new to the district, I'm not a familiar face, so it's been really, really nice for me to have that opportunity to create some buy-in with the students and to get that relationship started to be developed. In my classroom, I've used the circles in my advisory time, but also with my other classes. So I think that that's been a great way for me to get to know the kids and also get some buzz going and some buy-in from my students, and so that we can do some really cool stuff in my classroom. Right now in 7th grade, we've been learning about the My Play guidelines. So we break down each food group and then we do a cooking lab, and the kids love that. It's always fun for them. They also really enjoy the glow germ activity, and that basically is just a simulation where they put lotion on their hands and they can see under a black light different germs, and then we analyze different ways that people wash their hands to try and look at the different techniques that are most effective, which is so important right now. And it's amazing to hear the kids say, oh, I should use hot water and soap. Yes, you should. We also talk about cookie wars, where they go through and they learn about the functions of ingredients, and they get to kind of design their own cookie, and they do a unique spin on it. They create an advertisement, and they go through that process. And then we have a golden spoon competition. So we each get to try a little taste of a cookie, and they get to take a picture with a wooden spoon that's golden. So that's kind of fun for them. In 8th grade, we took a spin on career exploration in 8th graders. They actually just finished up their careers unit this afternoon, and they talked about careers that finding our interests and our passions and how we can use those and our skills to do things that make us happy and lead to a successful life. So that's been a lot of fun, and they do, at the end of that unit, we will work towards our entrepreneurship, and we'll do a food truck face-off. So they get to design a food truck, they get to make an advertisement, a business plan with their partners, they get to come up with a lab, and they get to cook in there too. They have a lot of fun with it, and last quarter, it was our first time doing it, and so that was kind of fun. Creative expressions, we took our take at some scrapbooking, some interior design. We had a community member come in and talk to us about her business, which was really cool. We had Mindy Lichter come in, and she told us about her experiences with interior design, and they really enjoyed being able to see like what life could look like in those different career opportunities. Looking to the future of the program, we're hoping next year to be able to offer more elective opportunities for our students, and maybe in personal finance, creative expressions again, nutrition, and food preparation. So, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Cool stuff.
Any questions or comments? Well, thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. It's wonderful to hear about all that's going on. All right, we'll move into new business. First, under new business is to approve the IASB delegate appointment.
Yeah, Rodney has volunteered to be the district's delegate at the assembly, which is a week from tomorrow. This is something Rodney has done for the district in the past, and I recommend Rodney as our
It will be
Association School Board delegate.
only I'm unable to attend any of the convention due to the virtual of it and my schedule, but I am able. That's an evening event, so I was willing to do.
That's a virtual event too?
Yeah, it is, but it's a Tuesday evening. So,
What does that actually entail? What are your duties? What do you do?
well, they'll talk about different. First of all, like Tom said, we'll go through the ISB board and get that all settled. We'll talk about some of the talking points that'll be main discussions for us during the legislative terms that's coming up also.
That's the thing. That's the things that we
Yep, that's
submitted.
what we did, we send that in, which
And we'll talk about with all districts, and then they'll narrow it down to there 4 or 5 that we'll do as a statewide, statewide for that. And there'll be some communications on that. And that's a lot of the conversations, I mean, with that. And somebody may bring up some things from the floor that they'd like to be discussed and see if it goes anywhere, But I don't foresee being virtual. I don't know if it'll be as, sometimes there's a little excitement to it.
I have not heard how many people are attending. You get an email, you sign up, and we're going to find out.
Yeah. So a little more formality, a little more business related than the convention itself. So I guess.
We do need a motion for that.
Yes, we do need a motion to approve myself.
I'll motion to approve Rodney for the IASB delegate.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that motion.
Thank you, Tom. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Open enrollments.
We have 4 open enrollment. Some of this is Mary Beth's continuing to clean our stuff up. And when I say that, what I mean is people, their status didn't change. We just didn't have appropriate paperwork. So she's done an awesome job with that. 3 of these students are from the 2 of the Algonah district. 1 is a kindergarten prep student open enrollment out to Forest City. That child has not attended our district. So I do recommend the approval of these open enrollment students.
I'll motion to approve the open enrollment.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Take who you got, Mary Beth. No. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve the board policy number 105.
Yeah, and this is not a new policy. So in the process of making the revisions to the 100 series that we did last month, Mary Beth and I were going through, we added 106, remember, last month, which is the Title IX policy. We didn't have a 105. So I contacted Iowa Association School Board, and they said, well, 105 is typically your therapy animals policy, which we did have. So we are just actually moving our therapy animals policy from the 600 series to 105, where it probably should be. I think you guys passed this in the spring of 19, because I was hired, but Dr. Tom was still here. I think that's when that took place. So this is just moving a current policy we have to 105.
Mr. Roder was a strong part of putting that program together for us, along with others. So,
Motion to approve the policy 105 on therapy animals.
thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve board policy 105. Any further discussion?
It's been a positive thing, yeah, the therapy.
It's been very, very good.
Good. I know the individuals that have the dogs really have a lot of responsibility, and they put that time in. So.
Take very good care of it. Seeing a great response with kids with it, that especially kids that are struggling with different things. We all know what effect can do, the soothing of it, and we've had a great response for our parents. I think we're going on the 2nd year. I think this year we have 1 student that has chosen not to be around the dog for personal reasons, but we've had 100% response rate back from parents, like, are your children okay to be around the dog, and any concerns or anything. So it's been a great thing. Really, really appreciate it. So.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our SBRC application.
First, we have the first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. First read. I crossed that off instead of going to it. Yes, first.
No action, but this is our first reading. I know some of you have went through some things. Gloria found some things that we'll look at, and I'll have as possible changes for you to approve next month. But if you get a chance, you can use that link to go through the 200 series from our website, and we'll look to make revisions and updates at the December meeting. We'll just continue to work through our series and all of our board policies in doing that.
All right. Yes, thank you. All right, now moving to the
Is that something you do
SBRC.
annually?
Are you doing it?
Review
Yeah.
this board policy?
It is. It's not how the district has done it historically. Best practice, I think, would be to have a rotation like we're doing. You have to have it every time. Every policy has to be reviewed every 5 years. 2016, I think, is when the board did it as a whole. So we do have to have them all done in this.
And then from here on out,
We'll just continue to roll.
Any other questions? Sorry to try to move on. Okay, now we'll move on to the SBRC application.
Yeah, the SBRC application for increasing enrollment, open enrollment out, and English language learners beyond 5 years. This is so that we can receive on-time funding budget adjustment. If there are certified enrollment increases, which we don't have that. Last year we did though. So that's one of the adjustments. Open enrollment out. This allows us to receive funding for students that we have, but we're not here in the fall. And then ELL beyond 5 years, so limited English proficiency students beyond 5 years for resident students. So what it does is we're able to receive the budget adjustment, which is in this artifact linked in your agenda. Over 91,000 for the open enrollment out. So these are students who we have here who were not here a year ago. And so it's on-time funding is what it is. Otherwise we would get that a year from now. And then there's a little over 3,000 in the ELL beyond 5 years.
Any questions?
It is one of the easiest applications you can have in a school district. It's one sheet of paper, it's easy to do, and it brings in lots of money, or lots of authority. Put it that
Lots of
way.
authority, right? Lots of authority.
I will make a motion to approve the SBRC.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Motion approved. Move now to appoint the Cassuth County Conference Board member.
This is something, it's an annual appointment for our board each year. I think there's one annual meeting that we attend. So we just need an appointment for the Cassuth County Conference Board.
And last year, I believe Brent did that for
Yeah,
us.
I did it just to, I think you were even a little caught off guard. You're like, what is this? So it has to do with elected officials that, in this, and basically it was the auditor, because they're setting their salary and their budgets as far as different things go. And auditors are the ones that tax everybody else. And so they need basically oversight before they change their budget as far as their salary. And it's the way I took it. It was at a supervisor's meeting, just delegated just to that. It was about 40 minutes, 30 minutes, and then there was a follow-up where we just did a lunch phone conversation. It's not very hard.
Are you willing to do it again? I suppose would be the
Unless
question.
somebody-
I'd be glad to do it.
Oh, would you?
Jay's
Great.
gonna do it. Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, they have, in order for it to be a valid meeting, they have to have, between like the city mayors, the school boards, and
Was it clerks even, or just the mayor?
something else, it might just within the majority of, so I mean, if one of us didn't show up, as long as there was a majority of school board members there, it would still be a valid meeting. But when I went, it was like, oh shoot, if I wouldn't have shown up, it would have been, we would have been short. So it is important, and it's just important. And I think we actually kind of controlled some expenditures or kept things in check a little bit. And the supervisors really run the meeting. It's just,
Well, Jay is willing to do that. Do we have a nomination?
I will
to-
definitely nominate Jay Limbaugh to
All
be
right.
the Cassuth
I'll
County.
second that.
Well, that was a quick nomination and second. Jay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Jay, for your willingness to do that.
1 year agreement.
1 year agreement.
Honestly, though, it is good to do it, and just to rotate through, just so we're all part of it. And I think it's important just to
Yeah.
do it. I mean, I met other school board members last year from different, districts, and it's just just face in the community, and it's representing our district, and we want to be there, want to be present.
Okay. Now we're going to the personnel section, new contracts.
We have a number of new contracts and also our volunteer assistants for our winter sports, which takes up many of these. We have Noah Arrowwood. Noah is currently also student teaching for us, and Molly Henderson's doing a great job as assistant boys basketball. Noah is as a contracted assistant boys basketball coach. He is currently student teaching with us.
And that's varsity?
That is. Ryan King for 9th grade boys basketball. Ryan was our assistant basketball coach. Ryan would move to 9th grade. Ashley Nichols as a volunteer assistant girls basketball. Jay Bustrom, Austin Long, Corey Keeker, and Brian Morgan as volunteer assistant wrestling coaches. Nick Stein as a volunteer assistant boys basketball coach. Then we do have some other contracted positions. Valerie McMahon, teacher associate in middle school. Mr. Roder's working with Little League. I think we have 2 openings there. This is one of those 2. Jennifer Reagan, cook assistant part-time, and Gina Friend, also a cook assistant part-time. I do recommend all of these contracts.
Need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the new contracts. I'll just make a comment too, that it's just exciting to see former graduates coming back to hopefully be part of the district someday or just participate. I mean, that's just so important to get young, energetic role models, and I see a lot of those names up there, and that's what it is. Some of them aren't so young, but I guess I'm just getting old. So.
We need a second. We have a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Gloria. We have a motion and a second for approval of the new contracts. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resignations.
We have 5 resignations. Molly Henderson from 9th grade volleyball. Cassidy Schultz as our middle school teacher associate. Jason Mosier from food service. Mike Weir from middle school football. And Ryan King from assistant football for this year. Softball. I'm sorry, assistant softball. And that will be pending Super Bowl replacement for those coaches.
No, Ryan, is that for summer 21 or 22?
21.
Okay, so this coming.
Yes.
Any questions? All right. We need a motion to approve the resignations.
I'd make a motion to approve the resignations.
Okay, thank you. We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need a motion now to go into closed session under 21.51I to...
A motion to approve to go into closed session for performance review of the superintendent.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay. Mary Beth, we need a roll call to go into that?
Yep.
All right, if you'll do that.
Bartos? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Limbaugh?
Yes.
Louwagie?
Yes.
Nugent?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Dempsey?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank everybody for being here today. We're going to move into closed
you.
session and ask everybody to please leave.